Did y'all know that Alabama Power has been around for 120 years? Alabama Power was founded in Gadsden, Alabama in 1906. 120 years worth of a foothold in the state of Alabama, controlling politics, controlling the Public Service Commission. I'm guessing they're getting a little sloppy in their old age. They're getting a little long in the tooth because Alabama Power has always been real good at covering their tracks. There's never been any real concrete evidence that they were meddling in our politics until this week. This recorded conversation between Alabama Power lobbyist R.B. Walker and Energy Alabama tells us exactly how deeply embedded Alabama Power is in our politics. You can listen to this recorded conversation at the end of this video, and I want you to listen to the statements that R.B. Walker makes. He says things like, we're not going to mess with that election, and we don't care if House Bill 364 goes through, but he also talks about talking to different lawmakers about pushing House Bill 364 through. Now, these two men were real comfortable talking to one another about having politicians in pockets of Alabama Power, so I'd really like to hear a conversation between these two that neither know is being recorded. Now, a lot of y'all been asking questions about them high energy bills because they're sky high, honey. Alabama's paying the highest energy bills out of all 50 states, and we're one of the poorest states. So we're going to talk about how we got here in the state of Alabama with Alabama Power. When I asked the question tonight, what is going on with Alabama Power on the porch with Munchies and Murder? Now, I just told y'all that Alabama Power was established back in 1906 in Gadsden, Alabama, but there is some discrepancy about that. See, the man that founded Alabama Power, William Patrick Lay, initially started to build that place over in Attala instead of Gadsden. He picked a place on Wills Creek. He was going to build him a hydroelectric dam. But William Patrick Lay didn't complete that. He ran out of money. Somebody else bought it. And they did produce power from that spot, but that was not where Alabama Power was founded. Alabama Power was founded just a year later in Gadsden, Alabama by William Patrick Lay and his son. And they hit the ground running, honey. Within 20 years, Alabama Power was the largest utility company in the state of Alabama. They made it through the Depression. They made it all the way to the 1940s, when the federal government started establishing laws to try to break up some of these monopoly utility companies. Now, one of the rules established back in the 1940s by the federal government to try to break up some of these monopoly utility companies is that the utility company could not be more than two companies removed from the holding company. Now, Alabama Power said, well, we're going to get around that. And that's when they established Southern Company. That became the holding company for Alabama Power and Georgia Power. Throughout the 20s, Alabama Power just went around absorbing smaller energy companies in the state of Alabama. And that rocked on until 1982. In 1982, the Public Service Commission in Alabama changed everything. Prior to 1982, if Alabama Power wanted to raise your rates, they had to go to a court-style hearing. They had to present evidence. They had to justify why they wanted to raise your rates. And Alabama Power didn't want to do that anymore. Alabama Power was tired of having to explain why they were raising rates. So they got in there and talked to that old Public Service Commission, and they figured out a new way to raise rates. A way that would be behind closed doors, without public scrutiny, without any court hearings, just a formula. Now, that Public Service Commission from 1982 was made up of Billy Joe Camp, William J. Sanford Jr., and Lynn Greer. Now, those three people decided that Alabama Power didn't need to have no more court hearings to raise your rates, that they need to come up with a new plan, something that could happen behind closed doors, something that didn't involve any kind of public scrutiny. So Alabama Power and the Public Service Commission came up with this formula. They called it the Rate Stabilization Equalization, and that is not what it does. It was supposed to stabilize energy rates across the state of Alabama for customers, and that is the last thing that it did. You see, this formula is basically what the Public Service Commission tells Alabama Power that they can earn in profits every year. Now, ironically, when they make over those profits, which they have done many, I could say many about 100 more times, and we would still mean more millions. You would think that formula and the amount of profits that Alabama Power is allowed to earn would be comparable to the rest of the country, but it's not. Ours is actually higher than everybody else. Now, when Alabama Power makes more money than they're supposed to give customers a refund. That hasn't happened very often since 1982. And every year since 1982, Alabama Power's profits have grown every single year, while our energy rates have continued to climb. Alabama Power has been padding them pockets, while Alabama residents get poorer. Y'all know what propaganda is, right? How do you make an entire state love you? You're going to want to talk to their kids. You're going to want to raise a generation that already loves you, right? You know what Alabama Power did the year after they changed how our rates are determined? They came up with that Louis Lightning Bug, right? They sent him out to schools, gave us all coloring books. I mean, they were giving us stuff left and right. We was competing in competitions. They were calendars. I mean, this still goes on today. Louis the Lightning Bug is still around. I'm going to tell you what. Growing up, I thought Alabama Power was the best thing that's ever happened since sliced bread because of Louis the Lightning Bug. Louis the Lightning Bug came out when I was in elementary school, and they hit us hard and fast. I thought Alabama Power was amazing. I didn't understand what was actually happening in the state of Alabama until I became an adult and started having to pay those power bills. And honey, Louis the Lightning Bug, that was propaganda. In my opinion, Louis the Lightning Bug was just a way to access Alabama's children and convince them that Alabama Power was the good guy, so that when they grew up, they wouldn't become adults who started questioning why their power bills were so high. Y'all wanted to know, why are Alabama power bills so high? Everybody's been asking it. That's why. 1982, and the Public Service Commission that changed the way that your rates are determined in the state of Alabama. And ever since 1982, those rates have continued to climb. And there has been very little oversight from the Public Service Commission. When the regulators don't regulate, what are the people supposed to do? Now, this went on for decades, y'all. Nobody ever said a word. Nobody asked any questions. Them rates just kept going up. There were no audits. There were no hearings. Just increased rates over and over and over again. Public Service Commission after Public Service Commission after Public Service Commission until 2013 with a man named Terry Dunn who ran for the Public Service Commission, and he got elected because he was calling for Alabama Power rates to be audited. I mean, that's not such a crazy thing to be asking for. In a state that is one of the poorest states in the U.S., having the highest energy bills for decades, well, that didn't make any sense. And Alabama Power wasn't having to answer any questions about these rate increases. They just kept going up and up and up. There was no public scrutiny. Nobody was saying anything. The Public Service Commission was sitting there mute. Not a word was coming out of them. They weren't trying to help the citizens of Alabama. They were in the pocket of Alabama Power until Terry Dunn. Let me tell you something. Old Twinkle Cavanaugh, she was the president of the Public Service Commission at that time, man. She was mad. Alabama Power spent millions of dollars through a company called Matrix. Now, Matrix is a PR firm. They were giving millions of dollars to Yellowhammer News and the Alabama Daily to smear Terry Dunn. Terry Dunn, a Republican, was painted as a radical left-wing Democrat nut. All because he thought that Alabama Power should be under some kind of scrutiny. That was in 2013, guys, and not a soul has asked a question since. Not a soul. Did you know that since 2013 to 2025, Alabama Power doubled their profits? They doubled their profits. And Alabama Power, who's had a 120-year foothold in the state of Alabama, doesn't like it when people start asking questions, and they will spare no expense to make those questions stop. Let's talk about why Alabama Power, the Public Service Commission, and all those legislators in Alabama that's in Alabama Power's pocket are freaking out right now. We're going to have to jump over to Georgia for a minute. You see, Georgia just flipped their Public Service Commission. A bunch of people who are not part of the establishment qualified to run for Georgia's Public Service Commission, and honey, they won. Alabama Power's freaking out because in Alabama, everybody's tired of them power bills, and a whole bunch of people qualified to run for the Public Service Commission, and they're calling y'all crazy. It's reminding me of that whole Terry Dunn smear situation where they're already talking crap about y'all just in case you might get elected because they're scared. They know y'all are going to ask questions. They know y'all are going to drive change, and they don't want that. Alabama Power isn't accustomed to answering any kind of questions. So now we've come to the part where y'all are all asking, what can we do? Well, Alabama Power is a 120-year-old company with a heck of a stronghold in the state of Alabama. They got people in their pockets from all over the place. They run the Public Service Commission. Vote. You need to vote. You need to vote for people that are not part of the establishment. You need to do your research. And right now, some of y'all are looking at me like I'm crazy. And you're going, well, all politicians are corrupt. None of them are good. There are some people that are trying to get into Alabama politics that are trying to do good. They are not part of the establishment. These are not establishment people. They're not going to come with big money. They're not going to come with big campaigns because they're like us. They've been having to sit in their homes and make decisions like paying a power bill or putting food on a table, and they're tired of it. So now they're going to run for the Public Service Commission. Let me tell y'all, I can't wait to see some of y'all on that Public Service Commission. And if any of y'all would like to be interviewed, buddy, I'm open. I will interview any person that is running for an elected position in the state of Alabama. We'll sit down right here on this porch and we'll talk about it. I'm going to ask some hard questions. I'm going to expect some answers. The citizens of Alabama are going to expect some answers. So after you vote, what do you do after that? Keep calling your senators. Y'all been doing a real good job lately, Alabama. I'm going to tell you what, I'm proud of y'all. Y'all been showing out. Y'all been going to meetings. You've been calling senators. You've been calling state representatives. Y'all have been standing up to this good old boy system. Y'all been calling out corruptions left and right all over this state in different sectors, and it is a beautiful thing to watch. Now, I know some of y'all are real mad. Y'all want to do more than that. So guess what? There's a protest on Monday, March the 16th at 2:30 p.m. Everybody's going to meet at Kelly Ingram Park and walk across the street to Alabama Power and protest. I will be there. Come. The more people that show up, the better. They cannot silence all of us. There are millions of people in the state of Alabama that are tired of this system. We can stand up right now and do something about every aspect of it. We can decide that we're not going to do this anymore. We can kick this good old boy corruption out of our state. I want to thank every single one of y'all for hanging out with me tonight on the porch with Munchies and Murder while we dove deep on Alabama Power and the corruption that's had a stronghold on this state for 120 years. And I know this one was a little bit shorter, but that's because I'm going to attach that recorded conversation between R.B. Walker, the Alabama Power lobbyist, and Energy Alabama, where they're talking about meddling in our elections.
Isn't good for really anybody. And I know y'all are probably going to be involved in that election and stuff like that. So we're not going to, try to mess with that election. But, just moving forward after that, the thought was, a different way of getting PSC commissioners. And so, it's not something I can be anywhere near. We're fine with the way it is now, but somebody brought that up as an option. And so I took it to Neil, and I also mentioned it to Bradley Davidson just because he and I had the same conversation. But, if that was going to work, it would need to be, so I was trying to give Neil a win,
I got you.
And I think that Neil's thought was, he would want y'all's support for it, which I agree with. Y'all are very important to Neil and his district and stuff like that. So, my thought was, let's let y'all have a win, it was kind of how I was thinking about it, and just kind of, y'all could say bad stuff about us and we could say bad stuff about y'all in the press, but that, this might be in the best long-term interest of customers, which is probably the only thing that we can agree on, and just kind of leave it at that.
I got you. Well, yeah, I was a little curious because I'd had it come up about a day ago. Bradley Davidson had mentioned something about it, and the way that he was mentioning it kind of sounded like it was coming like it was like facilitating the conversation, pretty much like y'all asking like, would we fight something like this? And so we didn't. Okay.
This is a take it or leave it thing.
I got you.
This would be if y'all. It looks funny to legislators if we get involved in something like that. And so, again, we're fine with the way it is now. But, a legislator asked me, is this something we should – because they saw – I don't have to say his name, but, we saw some crazy people qualify for the PSC.
Yeah.
It would not be warm and cuddly with environmental groups. It would not be warm and cuddly with us. We're going to try to work with whoever gets over there. That's our posture,
Likewise.
But if there's a way that there could be better people on the PSC that would allow us to do long range planning, even I would be open with working with y'all on that too, John. I've known you for a while, and I think you're an honest guy. I'll just lay it down for you.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, RB, and I think the same of you. That's why. Well, even if I did have caller ID on this call, I'd answer it anyway because I don't mind talking to you.
Well, I want to keep you from your eggs, but the thing is that now that people know about it, I was hoping that this would be an idea that came from Neil to y'all, and we would just shut up about it and just kind of we could grumble about it behind the scenes. Y'all could take a victory lap and but since other people know about it, it's a situation I need to get in front of. So, I mean, why don't we do this? Why don't we let Neil do whatever he wants to do? He told me he's going to meet with you. He knows I'm talking to you.
Yeah.
And y'all are very important to him. And so I don't want to do anything that gets Neil in any trouble. But, why don't we let Neil introduce his bill, and then we let him issue a statement, and I'll tell my people we're opposed to the bill, if that helps y'all, or I can just say, I mean, right now our posture on anything having to do with the PSC, we're going to be neutral on.
Yeah. Well, so
if y'all are looking for a legislative victory, I think this is a whopper.
Absolutely. No, and I appreciate that. But I'm going to continue to talk to, I haven't got a chance to really talk to like Daniel or anybody today, cause they're all doing some traveling, but I do have some concerns around taking too hard of a position from us, whether that's publicly or with other people in the record around a piece of legislation that deals with elections, because as a 501c3,
I understand.
I know that we can't meddle too deep into that. And so, I just want to make sure that
we're the same, because we're regulated by this board, so we can't meddle too deeply in it either. So,
right. So
I think what Neil needs is just some hey, we're, maybe I'll say you're neutral on it too, or something like that. I mean, whatever y'all need to do, you need to do. I'm trying to avoid a big old fight, John, and recognizing that ultimately we want what's better for customers. And I think that this would be a good win for y'all to take. It would be something we could tell policymakers we're open to a new regulatory regime, and just kind of treat it like that. And I'm happy to talk to Daniel. I'm happy to talk to whoever, and he can hear it straight from me. I won't lift a finger on the thing.
Absolutely. Well, no, I appreciate that. Me and Christina are going to talk to Neil today, like he was telling you. And so we'll talk and hammer out some details and figure out internally too what our folks think and what they want to see in it. If they want to see something like that, or if they don't, I can relay that message back to you, and we can go from there and still try to find some common ground. But either way.
And even then, it's important to know we're not talking about doing anything with this election. This election with the qualified candidates would proceed as planned under what Neil is talking about.
Right.
And so, I just don't want, people going on Twitter saying the power company's trying to, that's exactly what I was trying to avoid. I was trying to do the right thing by talking to my friend Neil, and, I mentioned it to Bradley too.
Cause I was confused yesterday.
My message to him was like, look, if you get a call from a legislator, most people are going to assume that we're opposed to that. And, in the past we might have been, John. But my message to Neil and Bradley was both, if that idea comes up, I'm not going to do anything on it.
I got you. Okay. Well, that makes more sense hearing you say that today, because yesterday I was like, well, if this is coming from, Alabama Power, constituents or ratepayers may see this and think, they want to take, they want Montgomery to choose the regulators instead of letting us choose them or something like that. And I was like, that'd be a PR disaster. So I don't think they'd really want that angle, so.
No, we're one of 10 states in the country that elects PSC commissioners. We want the stability. I mean, several states have done it recently where it's gone to an appointed model. Mostly in blue state, I will say that, what we like about it is that there's stability in those states that have an appointed commission. And, whatever the commission decides to do with us, but I will say this, what would be, we would want it to be Senate confirmed. So that, because, we're not close to Tommy Tuberville either.
I was about to say the governor's a little scary.
None of us have that. But if it's Senate confirmable, then that gives guys like Bobby Singleton and Marika, Kirk Hatcher and people like that way more of a say in who the commissioners are.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Well, that's definitely.
Here's the thing: I'm on a deadline, because if something's going to happen on this, I just need to know about it, so that way we can. I would like to work with you on our messaging and your messaging on it, and because I think that ultimately this is something that we would both just be fine with. I mean, again, we're fine leaving it the same, but I need to know something this morning, and Neil told me y'all weren't meeting till noon.
Got you. Okay. Well, as of right now, I can't 100% give you what our stance is going to be, but I'm going to go ahead and tell you what I think it's going to be, and don't kill the messenger. I think we're going to oppose it. If something like this comes up, just from the look of it, we're not involved with elections. So, I mean, we really don't care, too much if elections change, we'd have less to do like that. We've never had anything to do with elections in the first place, but from the framework of how the PSC is elected right now, we don't have a problem with it. So I think that's going to be our stance.
Okay. Well,
but if that changes, if we work out something, I know your deadline is this morning. If that changes, I'll still contact you after these meetings I have today with Rafferty, because, who knows what we can come up with, binging ideas off of each other.
Yeah. Well, let's just keep talking.
The truth of the matter, it was God's plan to show y'all the liar.